A gentle quiet settles over the imagined room as the story begins, the kind of quiet that invites the mind to loosen its grip on the day and drift toward softer thoughts. Somewhere in this stillness, a small metal filing cabinet creaks open. Its drawers move slowly, as if resisting the touch of hands that have not disturbed them for decades. Inside rests a set of folders, plain, yellowed, slightly curled at the edges, marked not with sensational claims or dramatic warnings, but with the calm, methodical labeling of an era when people believed that mysteries could be solved simply by paying close attention. These are the long-forgotten case files of NICAP, the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, a civilian group once known for its discipline, its seriousness, and its insistence on data over drama. As the listener settles into the unfolding story, the atmosphere invites deep relaxation. Dust motes drift lazily in the imagined beam of a desk lamp. The room feels timeless, suspended somewhere between the late 1950s and the present day, as if these rediscovered documents serve as a bridge between generations of skywatchers. Within these quiet pages lie accounts from pilots, radar operators, farmers, military personnel, and ordinary citizens, all captured with a precision that feels strangely soothing. NICAP's investigators were not chasing wild tales. They were collecting testimony in an age when many believed that keeping proper records was an act of civic duty. Even now, their steady handwriting and meticulous forms radiate a kind of calm purpose. This introduction unfolds slowly, the way sleep does. It invites the listener to breathe a little deeper, to imagine the tactile presence of the archive, the soft rasp of paper, the faint smell of aging cardboard, the gentle weight of documents that have endured time without demanding attention. The rediscovery of these files is not portrayed as a dramatic revelation, but as a peaceful reopening of forgotten rooms in history. These are not the kinds of stories that burst into headlines. They are quiet mysteries, cases that were never disproven, never fully explained, and never given the space they deserved. Now in the stillness of nighttime, they surface again, offering curiosity without urgency, intrigue without fear. The context surrounding these files is important to understand, even in this soft opening. NICAP operated during a period when the skies felt like a frontier of possibility. Jet travel was still novel. Satellites were beginning to reshape humanity's relationship with the cosmos, and world powers were pouring enormous effort into hidden technologies. Against this backdrop, sightings of unexplained objects were not simply tabloid amusements. They were considered matters that deserved systematic review. NICAP became known for treating each report with the seriousness of a scientific case study. Investigators compared witness accounts to astronomical tables, military flight logs, weather data, and radar signatures. Their goal was not to prove anything supernatural, but to filter the known from the unknown with patience and care. This calm ambition is what makes the rediscovered files so compelling. Many of the cases that slipped through public awareness were neither shocking nor extreme. Instead, they were subtle, precise, and quietly persuasive. A light that moved against the wind. A structured shape observed by multiple trained professionals. A radar return that matched but did not mimic known aircraft behavior. These understated details gain new depth when revisited with the peaceful clarity of hindsight. They become less like puzzles clamoring for solutions, and more like gentle reminders that the world is larger, quieter, and more mysterious than it often appears. As the narrative settles into its rhythm, the listener is invited to imagine the investigators themselves. They were often volunteers, teachers, engineers, retired officers, people who spent their evenings writing letters, interviewing witnesses, and cataloging reports out of sheer dedication. There is something soothing about their quiet persistence. They were not trying to shock the world. They were simply documenting what they saw and what others claimed to have seen, believing that the truth, whatever it was, would emerge naturally from the accumulation of careful observation. The rediscovered files now rest in this story like lanterns in the dark, small beacons offering soft light rather than harsh certainty. Each case is a moment frozen in time, preserved by the very ordinariness of the people who recorded it. And as the listener relaxes further, The narrative gently suggests that mysteries do not have to be resolved to be meaningful. Sometimes the act of revisiting them, slowly, patiently, without expectation, can be enough to soothe the restless parts of the mind. This opening section sets the tone for the journey ahead, unhurried, immersive, and grounded in the real-world efforts of those who sought understanding long before modern technology reshaped the conversation. The listener is nudged toward a state of calm curiosity, invited to drift between history and imagination. What lies inside the remaining files will unfold gradually, each case a quiet chapter in a larger tapestry of unexplained sightings and forgotten investigations. For now, the drawer of the old cabinet remains open, the first folder resting gently on the table, waiting for the story to continue as the night deepens and the world outside slips into silence. The world into which NICAP emerged was a place where the sky held a kind of quiet tension, a mixture of possibility and unease that stretched from horizon to horizon. The late 1950s through the early 1970s were years shaped by competition, secrecy, and transformation. For the first time in human history, ordinary people could look upward and know that machines, some friendly, some hostile, moved above them in the dark. Jet engines roared across continents, experimental prototypes pushed the boundaries of speed, and satellites blinked like artificial stars in orbits no one had previously imagined. The sky, once the domain of birds and weather, became a layered space filled with new technologies and new anxieties. It was in this charged environment that NICAP took root, seeking not to banish mystery, but to understand it with calm, structured inquiry. The Cold War cast a long shadow over every unusual object spotted in the night sky. Nations were locked in an ideological struggle defined by secrecy, propaganda, and innovation. Military bases hummed with activity, testing aircraft whose shapes and speeds often exceeded what the public believed possible. High-altitude reconnaissance programs, like early iterations of the U-2 or the clandestine development of the State Route 71, created silhouettes that even trained observers had never seen before. These experimental planes moved in ways that defied expectations, sometimes appearing as blazing streaks, silent glides, or shimmering anomalies against the atmosphere. But the secrecy surrounding them meant that when witnesses reported strange aerial behavior, official channels often offered no explanation. Silence, intentional or otherwise, fed a simmering curiosity. At the same time, radar technology was evolving rapidly. Civilian and military installations were picking up returns from objects that behaved unpredictably. Some were errors, reflections, or atmospheric distortions. Others appeared structured, deliberate, and controlled. Radar operators, who relied on precision and discipline, sometimes found themselves perplexed by blips that changed direction without slowing or vanished as though swallowed by the air. Their testimonies would later become some of the most compelling entries in NICAP's archives. These technicians were not stargazers or thrill-seekers. They were professionals whose work demanded skepticism. The fact that many of them chose to report anomalies added weight to the growing sense that something unusual was unfolding in the skies. Culturally, the mid-20th century was a time of both scientific optimism and deep-rooted fear. The atomic age had arrived with a mixture of awe and dread. Films, radio dramas, and pulp magazines filled imaginations with images of invaders, explorers, and cosmic travelers. Yet beneath the fiction lay a genuine sense of uncertainty. If humanity could split the atom, launch satellites, and touch the edge of space, what else might be possible? The boundaries between speculation and reality blurred, not through irrationality, but through rapid technological acceleration. People lived in an age where yesterday's impossibility became today's announcement. This mindset created fertile ground for unexplained sightings to be taken seriously, even by educated and skeptical observers. NICAP's founders recognized that this cultural moment required calm, disciplined investigation rather than sensational claims. They aimed to build an organization that could sit at the intersection of public curiosity and scientific rigor. Report forms were designed to extract useful details, angles, altitudes, weather conditions, witness backgrounds. Letters were exchanged with astronomers, meteorologists, and military contacts. The group attracted members who believed that transparency and documentation were essential tools for navigating a world filled with secrecy. Their work offered something rare in that era, a place where people could report a strange encounter without fear of ridicule, knowing their words would be measured against data, not dismissed out of hand. The broader historical context also shaped how sightings were interpreted. Air raid drills, civil defense warnings, and the ever-present possibility of conflict-heightened sensitivities. A flicker of light in the night sky could stir thoughts of surveillance or threat. Pilots flying commercial routes were trained to monitor for foreign aircraft. Farmers working late in their fields were accustomed to hearing military jets overhead. When something moved silently, hovered too long, or changed direction against the wind, it captured attention in a way it might not have in a more peaceful era. This vigilance created an environment where unusual sightings were noticed, recorded, and sometimes corroborated by multiple observers across great distances. Scientific advancements added another layer to the mystery. Astronomers were discovering more about planetary atmospheres, solar behavior, and cosmic radiation. Physicists were studying plasma, magnetism, and electrical phenomena that could occasionally mimic intelligent movement when viewed from the ground. Meteorologists were mapping temperature inversions and unusual cloud formations that could distort perception. Each new scientific insight offered a possible explanation for at least some sightings, yet others remained stubbornly resistant to classification. NICAP occupied this delicate space, balancing skepticism with openness, acknowledging both the explanatory power of science and the persistence of unexplained anomalies. As the timeline approaches the early 1970s, the atmosphere becomes one of transition. Governments around the world were beginning to reconsider their stance on aerial phenomena, not because of extraterrestrial speculation, but because airspace integrity had become a matter of national security. The U.S. Air Force's investigations shifted tone multiple times, reflecting internal debates about how seriously to treat citizen reports. Meanwhile, everyday people continued to see lights and shapes that defied easy explanations. These accounts often surfaced quietly, reported to police stations, radio newsrooms, or local newspapers, before eventually finding their way into NICAP's filing system. This era's blend of uncertainty, innovation, and vigilance created the perfect conditions for NICAP's work to flourish. The organization became a calm voice in a noisy world, collecting stories while resisting the lure of sensationalism. In understanding the world NICAP was born into, one begins to appreciate why its lost files carry such weight. They are not relics of fantasy, but reflections of a time when humanity looked upward with equal measures of fear and wonder, searching the skies not just for threats or answers, but for meaning. The first of the rediscovered files sits quietly in the dim light, its paper soft with age, its ink faded but still legible. It tells the story of a calm, moonless night in 1958, when a commercial flight over the Cascade Range experienced something that would linger in the memory of its crew long after they landed. The sky that evening was unusually clear, the kind of clarity pilots appreciate, a smooth, dark canvas dotted with a few scattered stars. The aircraft, a mid-sized prop-driven passenger plane, held a quiet cabin of travelers drifting between light sleep and muted conversation. Everything seemed routine until the pilot noticed a formation of lights far ahead, arranged in a pattern too symmetrical to be mistaken for stars or reflections. The lights moved in an intelligent line, holding position even as the aircraft advanced. According to the pilot statement, the objects did not behave like conventional aircraft. They maintained a precise, deliberate spacing, almost as though observing from a comfortable distance. Their movement was steady at first, then subtly responsive. When the plane adjusted altitude, the lights mirrored the change at a proportional distance, neither approaching aggressively nor fading away. The co-pilot, experienced and cautious, confirmed the sighting without hesitation. What made the event particularly compelling was the absence of sound or trail. Nothing suggested engines, exhaust, or aerodynamic surfaces. The objects were simply present, as if suspended in the upper air by a force that needed no visible support. Meanwhile, on the ground, a small regional radar installation registered several intermittent returns in the same area. The radar operator, whose report would later be attached to the NICAP file, noted that the targets did not correspond to known flight paths and moved with unusual steadiness. The returns were faint but consistent enough to suggest that something physical was there, something with reflectivity and structure. The operator attempted to cross-reference the blips with expected military activity, but found no scheduled flights matching the positions. His report concluded with a cautious remark. The returns behaved uncharacteristically for either weather interference or standard aircraft. NICAP investigators, upon receiving the pilot's letter and the radar note, immediately set about their systematic process. They reviewed weather data for the region: clear skies, stable atmospheric layers, and no significant temperature inversion that might create mirage-like effects. They checked astronomical charts for bright planets, meteors, or satellite sightings. None matched the timing or behavior described. Flight logs were examined to verify that no military training exercises were underway. Although classified operations could never be entirely ruled out, nothing publicly acknowledged could account for the formation. The consistency between visual observation and radar data gave the case a weight that NICAP rarely attributed to single-witness events. What distinguishes the pilot's testimony is not dramatic flair but restraint. The account is written in the precise, unemotional tone characteristic of professional aviators. There are no exaggerated claims, no speculation about origins or intentions. The pilot describes only what was seen: 3 bright objects maintaining formation, pacing the aircraft from a distance of several miles, traveling at a speed comparable to the plane, and then, after roughly 10 minutes, executing a sudden, effortless climb. According to the report, the lights ascended in a steep, synchronized arc before disappearing into the upper atmosphere, moving far faster than any known aircraft of the era. The pilot admitted uncertainty, stating only that the objects did not move like anything familiar from military or civilian aviation. NICAP's internal notes on the case express cautious intrigue. One investigator suggested the possibility of classified aircraft, though this was accompanied by the acknowledgement that such precision formation flying, combined with silent operation, would have represented a significant technological leap for 1958. Another investigator considered atmospheric plasma formations, but the structured, geometric alignment of the lights made this explanation unlikely. The file contains several subtle remarks about the credibility of trained observers. Pilots were considered reliable witnesses due to their familiarity with sky conditions and aircraft behavior. The addition of a radar track elevated the case from anecdote to documented anomaly. Eyewitness psychology also played a role in NICAP's evaluation. Professional pilots operate under strict protocols and high cognitive demands. Their perceptual training reduces the chances of misidentifying common aerial phenomena. Fear of ridicule or professional consequences often discouraged reporting, which means that when pilots did come forward, they typically did so with deliberation and sincerity. This particular pilot reported the encounter only after consulting the co-pilot and confirming that other crew members had observed at least part of the event. Their shared discretion reinforced the sense that the encounter was unusual enough to merit official attention. Rereading this file today, one senses the quiet power of an event that is neither dramatic nor embellished. It is the subtlety that makes it compelling. Lights that behaved with intention, yet displayed no recognizable technology. A formation that responded intelligently but without aggression. A radar signature that appeared and faded without interference. In the context of the era, these elements form a picture of something moving through the night, calmly, confidently, and without concern for being observed. It is no wonder that NICAP considered this case one of its more intriguing yet unresolved entries. As the listener imagines the aircraft gliding silently over the mountains, the mysterious lights accompanying it like distant companions, the story becomes both soothing and absorbing. There is no fear in the retelling, only curiosity and a quiet sense of wonder. The file closes with no conclusion, only an invitation to reflect on how much of the sky remains unexplained. The journey continues, gently drawing the listener deeper into the archive, where other forgotten encounters wait to be unfolded with the same calm patience. Across the decade of the 1960s, patterns began to emerge in the files that NICAP had quietly collected. Patterns that suggested a consistency in the unexplained that could not easily be dismissed. Multiple witnesses, often separated by miles, described lights moving with precision, hovering silently over towns, or shifting in ways that defied conventional physics. One recurring motif involved objects that appeared in the sky near small communities, sometimes over farms, other times over military installations, always leaving witnesses with a lingering sense of awe. These cases were neither loud nor violent. Instead, they possessed a quiet persistence that seemed to challenge the everyday assumptions of observers. NICAP carefully cataloged each account, noting the alignment of witnesses' descriptions, the timing of the sightings, and even the subtle details, the way lights reflected off clouds, the occasional soundless movement, and the manner in which objects vanished suddenly, without warning. One particularly illustrative example comes from a cluster of sightings across a rural stretch in the Midwest. On several occasions, residents reported slow-moving, bright lights appearing at twilight, hovering for long stretches over open fields. Farmers described seeing a soft glow cast across crops, the intensity shifting as the lights moved in seemingly deliberate patterns. At least 2 local law enforcement officers confirmed seeing the same phenomena from different vantage points, documenting times, positions, and angles. NICAP investigators compared these accounts against astronomical charts, weather reports, and aircraft schedules, finding no conventional explanation that could account for both visual and temporal alignment. The files reveal a meticulous effort to triangulate these observations, providing a sense of quiet, methodical inquiry that is almost meditative to read. During the same era, reports emerged from pilots and air traffic controllers who described aerial objects moving with sudden accelerations, abrupt stops, and precise directional changes that were impossible for conventional aircraft. Yet, despite these extraordinary maneuvers, the encounters were not always frightening. Witnesses often described a feeling of calm curiosity, a sense that the objects were present with intention but not malice. Psychologists studying eyewitness behavior later noted that people who observed highly unusual phenomena without immediate threat often recalled the events more clearly and consistently. NICAP's files reflect this pattern. Detailed accounts from trained observers, paired with corroborating evidence when available, which gives these reports an understated but persuasive credibility. NICAP's investigators also noted that the 1960s were a time of rising public interest in the unexplained, shaped by the cultural and technological climate. The space race had captured the collective imagination, while science fiction narratives had begun to blend more closely with reports of real-life sightings. This cultural environment may have influenced how witnesses described their experiences, but NICAP emphasized the objective details: speed, trajectory, luminosity, and formation patterns, rather than speculative interpretations. The organization sought to filter personal interpretation from observation, maintaining a calm, analytical tone that makes their archived reports feel both credible and soothing in their thoroughness. Another interesting trend from these multi-witness events was the apparent intelligence in the object's behavior. NICAP investigators carefully documented cases in which lights appeared to react to the movement of vehicles, aircraft, or even individuals on the ground. In one coastal town, several residents reported a triangular formation of lights that hovered for several minutes before slowly retreating as a fishing boat approached the shore. Radar records, when available, sometimes reflected these movements, creating a layered record of sensory perception and technological detection. The files do not claim to prove intent or consciousness, but the consistency of such observations across multiple witnesses and locations added weight to the sense that these were not random or purely natural phenomena. Observers themselves often described an emotional resonance alongside the visual experience, a calm fascination, a sense of being quietly invited into something beyond ordinary perception. NICAP took note of these subtleties without sensationalizing them, recognizing that human perception and emotional response are part of understanding any complex event. The investigators' dedication to recording not only the facts, but also the context, the time of night, the presence of other environmental stimuli, and the observers' backgrounds, enhances the file's depth and richness. Reading these accounts today is a gentle experience. It encourages reflection on the sky, the unknown, and the quiet mysteries that exist at the edges of perception. In addition to civilian reports, the 1960s also saw multiple sightings involving military personnel and radar operators. These accounts were particularly valuable because they often included precise measurements, corroborating observations, and detailed logs of the events. The juxtaposition of trained professional observations with civilian testimony allowed NICAP to compare patterns across different levels of expertise. The files reveal a careful, almost meditative effort to cross-check reports, to weigh credibility, and to capture the subtle nuances that separate routine aerial phenomena from something truly unusual. Each account contributes to a larger tapestry, forming a slow, deliberate narrative of skywatching that emphasizes continuity, curiosity, and careful attention. As the decade progressed, NICAP's compilation of these cases highlighted not chaos, but rhythm, a recurring quietness in the way objects moved, in the consistency of witness accounts, and in the methodical care with which the organization recorded them. The multi-witness events of the 1960s are not explosive or sensational. They are gentle, layered mysteries that unfold slowly, almost like a meditation. Each sighting is a quiet brush against the ordinary, inviting the observer to pause and consider that the night sky may hold secrets that are subtle, pervasive, and persistently beyond our immediate understanding. Through these files, the listener is drawn deeper into a serene contemplation of the unknown, where mystery and calm coexist in perfect harmony. NICAP's work during this period was deeply entwined with the silent tension between public curiosity and government secrecy. While the organization operated as a civilian body, it existed in a world where military and intelligence agencies closely monitored the skies, sometimes for national security, sometimes to protect experimental technologies, and occasionally for reasons that remain obscure. The U.S. Air Force's Project Blue Book, which officially investigated unidentified aerial phenomena, often came into indirect contact with NICAP's cases. Though there were occasional points of collaboration, there were also frequent points of friction. Reports submitted by ordinary citizens, pilots, or radar operators sometimes vanished into official channels, leaving NICAP to interpret incomplete data. Investigators noted in their files that missing or delayed information complicated their efforts to fully understand many cases, a quiet reminder of how bureaucracy and secrecy could slow the pursuit of clarity. Some of the tension arose from the very nature of the Cold War. National security concerns meant that even mundane sightings could be classified, whether they involved experimental aircraft or surveillance balloons. NICAP's founders, including figures like Donald Kehoe, were aware that what was withheld from the public might not necessarily indicate extraterrestrial presence, yet the lack of transparency created fertile ground for speculation. Letters, internal memos, and notes within the NICAP archives reveal a careful attempt to navigate this uncertainty. Investigators would note discrepancies between witness accounts and official explanations, while also acknowledging the gaps created by restricted access to military records. There is a quiet persistence in the files, a patience that mirrors the slow unfolding of understanding in a world where some truths were deliberately obscured. The files show multiple instances where NICAP requested supporting documentation, only to receive partial or conflicting information. Radar logs, for example, were sometimes incomplete or missing entirely, leaving investigators to rely on the testimony of operators or the corroboration of multiple witnesses. On one occasion, a pilot reported a cluster of lights moving in formation over a small airfield, and NICAP's correspondence with the Air Force revealed that no flight plans accounted for the objects. Later, a memo suggested that the files might have been archived under a different project number, illustrating how administrative silos could unintentionally conceal evidence. Throughout, NICAP maintained a calm, methodical approach, meticulously recording each attempt at cross-referencing, as though the act of careful documentation itself could preserve a measure of truth amid uncertainty. These interactions also highlight the subtle psychological dimensions of secrecy. Witnesses who attempted to report unusual phenomena to official authorities often encountered indifference, skepticism, or even gentle ridicule. Pilots, officers, and civilians alike sometimes hesitated before filing reports, fearing professional consequences or social judgment. NICAP, in contrast, offered a kind of safe harbor, a space where accounts could be shared and analyzed without immediate dismissal. This created a delicate balance. The organization needed to maintain credibility while offering reassurance and support to those who stepped forward. The files reveal this balance in detailed language. Investigators frequently praised the reliability of witnesses, emphasized corroborating details, and avoided sensationalizing the events, fostering a calm, credible tone throughout. The cultural consequences of government secrecy were profound. In a society attuned to Cold War tensions, unexplained lights or objects could be interpreted as either technological threats or profound mysteries. When information was withheld or when official explanations appeared incomplete or inconsistent, it created an unintentional vacuum for speculation. NICAP's role, therefore, was both practical and psychological. By carefully cataloging and analyzing reports, the organization provided a stabilizing framework for understanding, one that countered the uncertainty created by secrecy. The files themselves, with their detailed notes, maps, and correspondence, convey a quiet confidence. They are evidence of a patient, structured attempt to bring order to a partially obscured reality. NICAP also faced challenges when reports entered the media. Mainstream newspapers, radio programs, and later television often sought dramatic narratives, which contrasted sharply with NICAP's methodical style. Investigators sometimes recorded frustration with media misrepresentation, noting that embellishment or exaggeration could undermine the perceived reliability of witnesses. Yet the organization continued its careful work, understanding that truth and documentation mattered more than fleeting public attention. Within the files, one can almost sense the calm determination of researchers who prioritize thoroughness over spectacle, providing a reassuring counterpoint to the sometimes chaotic cultural environment surrounding UFO sightings. The files also reveal the organization's subtle efforts to engage with official authorities while maintaining independence. NICAP often sent formal inquiries to Air Force bases, radar stations, and other agencies, politely requesting records or clarification. When answers were slow, incomplete, or absent, investigators made careful note, understanding that these gaps were not necessarily proof of conspiracy, but rather a reflection of complex bureaucratic processes. By treating each missing piece as an element of the investigation rather than a final verdict, NICAP cultivated a form of disciplined curiosity, encouraging both researchers and readers to appreciate the mysteries without forcing premature conclusions. Reading these files today, one senses the tension between disclosure and concealment as a quiet, almost meditative backdrop. The organization's careful attention to detail, patience in the face of incomplete information, and respect for witness credibility create a sense of calm authority. Even when the truth remains elusive, NICAP's work demonstrates a profound respect for observation, testimony, and inquiry. The interplay of secrecy, partial information, and meticulous record-keeping transforms what might otherwise be a source of anxiety into a contemplative experience. For the listener, this section offers a gentle immersion into the quiet spaces where history, mystery, and human diligence converge, preparing the mind to continue exploring the unknown with both curiosity and tranquility. NICAP's approach to unexplained sightings was careful and deliberate, but the organization also recognized that multiple explanations could coexist for any single event. Some cases lent themselves to grounded, scientific reasoning, while others seemed to stretch beyond conventional understanding. Investigators often catalog possible explanations ranging from optical phenomena to atmospheric anomalies, maintaining a calm, methodical tone that encouraged curiosity without sensationalism. One explanation frequently considered was that of natural atmospheric events. Ball lightning, temperature inversions, and rare forms of cloud reflection were sometimes capable of producing lights or movements that seemed intelligent from the ground. Meteor showers, planetary alignments, or distant aircraft glints could also mislead the casual observer. NICAP's files show meticulous comparisons between these natural phenomena and reported cases, noting when observed behavior exceeded what could be explained by known science. Yet even within these scientific frameworks, some accounts resisted conventional analysis. Several witnesses described lights performing sudden stops, sharp turns, or accelerations far beyond the capabilities of any aircraft known at the time. Pilots and radar operators, trained in the recognition of aviation behavior, often confirmed that these movements were inconsistent with standard aircraft maneuvers. NICAP took these observations seriously, carefully recording details such as timing, altitude, and speed. The files reflect a disciplined approach. Each anomaly was cataloged, cross-checked against weather and flight data, and compared to similar incidents. This level of care helped distinguish genuine irregularities from those that could be reasonably explained by natural or man-made phenomena. Beyond atmospheric and mechanical explanations, NICAP also considered human perception as a critical factor. Eyewitness psychology played an important role in understanding why individuals sometimes interpreted ordinary events as extraordinary. The organization noted that fatigue, low light conditions, and the brain's tendency to seek patterns in ambiguous stimuli could influence perception. At the same time, the files emphasized the reliability of trained observers, particularly pilots, radar operators, and military personnel, whose experience reduced the likelihood of misidentification. The reports suggest a delicate balance, acknowledging the limitations of human perception while respecting the credibility of those whose observations were consistent across multiple witnesses and sources. Some interpretations ventured into more extraordinary territory, often labeled alternative or paranormal explanations. These ranged from the hypothesis of interdimensional phenomena to theories of advanced non-human intelligence operating discreetly within Earth's atmosphere. In several cases, objects seemed to defy gravity, remain silent despite apparent propulsion, or vanish in ways inconsistent with conventional physics. NICAP's files carefully document these reports without endorsing them outright, presenting them as possibilities to be considered in the broader landscape of unexplained phenomena. The investigators' restraint is striking. They avoid sensational conclusions, instead allowing the data and witness accounts to speak for themselves, leaving the observer with a sense of calm intrigue rather than alarm. Interestingly, NICAP also explored the idea that consciousness or collective perception might influence sightings. Some researchers speculated that moments of heightened attention or cultural expectation could amplify the perception of anomalous activity. Witnesses often described a feeling of connection or heightened awareness when observing the objects, a subtle psychological element that the organization recorded with care. This attention to the human dimension, how observers interact with what they perceive, adds a layer of depth to the files, reminding us that mystery exists not only in the sky, but also in the quiet workings of the mind. The organization's files also show a disciplined effort to weigh competing explanations. Radar anomalies, visual observations, and environmental factors were systematically compared against one another, producing a nuanced record of each encounter. In many cases, investigators noted multiple plausible causes without settling on a single answer. This multi-layered analysis is calming in its methodical quality. It reflects an approach that values patience, observation, and the acknowledgement of uncertainty. Rather than rushing to a conclusion, NICAP allowed the evidence to unfold gradually, creating a slow, contemplative rhythm that invites the reader or listener into thoughtful engagement. Some reports further explore technological possibilities beyond the public's awareness at the time. Experimental aircraft, secret government projects, or novel propulsion systems might account for certain behaviors, though documentation was often scarce or classified. NICAP's investigators noted these possibilities carefully, juxtaposing them against visual and radar evidence to determine plausibility. The files capture a quiet respect for both human ingenuity and the limits of contemporary knowledge, reinforcing a tone of measured curiosity rather than fear or conjecture. By combining natural, technological, psychological, and extraordinary perspectives, NICAP created a holistic approach to the unexplained. Each case is recorded with precision, each observation cross-referenced, and each anomaly contextualized within the known world of the time. The files encourage a reflective state, inviting the listener to consider multiple layers of possibility while remaining anchored in evidence. There is no rush, no pressure to resolve the unknown, only a gentle exploration of what might exist at the edges of perception. In this way, NICAP's work bridges the realms of curiosity, scientific inquiry, and quiet wonder, providing a calming, contemplative space in which mysteries of the sky can be considered thoughtfully and peacefully. By the time the 1960s and early 1970s arrived, NICAP's work had begun to ripple beyond the quiet walls of investigation into the wider cultural landscape. The organization's meticulous files, once the domain of devoted researchers, gradually influenced radio programs, early television broadcasts, and investigative journalism that sought to explore the strange and unexplainable without tipping into sensationalism. In towns and cities across America, listeners would hear calm, measured voices recounting sightings of lights that moved with intention, sometimes confirmed by multiple witnesses, sometimes leaving only a lingering mystery. The effect was subtle but pervasive. People began to recognize that these unexplained phenomena were not the product of hysteria or imagination alone. They had been observed, recorded, and analyzed with care, lending the stories a quiet legitimacy that resonated deeply with a society attuned to the tensions of the Cold War and the wonders of space exploration. The media's treatment of UFO sightings often created a delicate balance between fascination and fear. Newspapers sometimes dramatized stories, while radio hosts tended to blend anecdote with speculation. NICAP's files served as a stabilizing force in this environment. By offering carefully documented accounts, the organization provided journalists with material that was credible, detailed, and grounded in observation rather than conjecture. Some of the most memorable programs of the era, radio segments that featured calm narration of pilot reports, rural sightings, and radar anomalies, drew directly from NICAP's archives. The storytelling style, slow and methodical, emphasized the wonder of observation rather than the terror of the unknown, creating a soothing yet intriguing experience for audiences, particularly those seeking to drift into sleep while listening to mysterious tales. This cultural transmission extended into the realm of mythology and popular imagination. Writers and artists began to incorporate motifs found in NICAP's investigations: silent triangular craft, glowing spheres, and lights that hovered with uncanny steadiness. Yet the files themselves remained remarkably grounded, emphasizing observation over interpretation. This contrast between disciplined documentation and imaginative adaptation created a dynamic tension that made the stories both compelling and relaxing. The listener is invited into a space where the unknown feels expansive rather than threatening, a quiet exploration of the sky's hidden rhythms. The phenomena recorded by NICAP were not depicted as monsters or intruders, but as subjects worthy of thoughtful attention and patient reflection. The influence of NICAP also extended to public attitudes toward the unknown. By presenting multi-witness accounts, corroborated radar observations, and careful consideration of possible explanations, the organization helped normalize curiosity about aerial anomalies. The files suggest a subtle psychological impact. When mysteries are documented methodically and treated respectfully, they lose some of their capacity to provoke fear and instead become objects of contemplative interest. People who engaged with these reports, whether through media coverage, publications, or the organization's own newsletters, were encouraged to adopt a stance of calm inquiry. Mystery became something to observe, consider, and imagine, rather than something to panic over or dismiss outright. The files reveal that some phenomena described by witnesses carried a sense of quiet intelligence. Lights that adjusted to human movement or that maintained formation over extended periods suggested behavior that was deliberate yet not aggressive. NICAP often refrain from interpretation, simply documenting these behaviors in precise terms: speed, altitude, trajectory, and timing. This restraint contributed to the soothing quality of the narratives. Rather than sensationalizing encounters, NICAP created a form of storytelling that respected both the witness's experiences and the listener's desire for calm engagement with the unknown. It is this balance between intrigue and serenity, between detail and imagination, that makes the archives particularly well-suited for a bedtime exploration of mystery. The interplay between media adaptation and NICAP's meticulous documentation also created a broader cultural dialogue about evidence, skepticism, and belief. Listeners, readers, and viewers could engage with the stories at multiple levels, appreciating the narrative for its curiosity and wonder, reflecting on the reliability of professional witnesses, or considering alternative explanations grounded in science. The calm tone of NICAP's reporting encouraged a thoughtful approach, allowing audiences to explore the possibilities of the unknown without feeling rushed or overwhelmed. The slow, methodical pacing mirrors the rhythm of the night sky itself, a gentle reminder that understanding often comes gradually and patiently. NICAP's influence extended beyond national borders as well. Accounts from international witnesses, when incorporated into comparative analyses, helped illustrate recurring patterns of unexplained phenomena. This global context added depth and subtle intrigue without creating alarm. By connecting local and international experiences, NICAP's work suggested that the sky holds mysteries that transcend cultural or geographic boundaries, fostering a sense of quiet wonder that is universal. For the listener, this evokes a comforting perspective. While the unknown persists, it is shared, observed, and considered thoughtfully across time and space. Finally, the cultural echoes of NICAP's investigations demonstrate that mystery can be both intellectually stimulating and emotionally soothing. By emphasizing calm, deliberate observation and resisting sensationalist impulses, the organization created a framework through which the public could engage with unexplained phenomena in a way that nurtured curiosity without anxiety. As listeners immerse themselves in these accounts, they are invited to experience the night sky as a space of reflection, imagination, and gentle intrigue. The lights, formations, and patterns documented in the archives become companions rather than threats, guiding the mind into a relaxed state while hinting at the vast, quiet mysteries that stretch beyond the horizon. In this way, the cultural influence of NICAP is not merely historical. It is experiential, offering a bridge between recorded events and the tranquil contemplation of the unknown. As the years passed, NICAP's work continued to quietly shape the way people thought about the mysteries in the sky. Despite the gradual fading of its prominence in the public eye, the organization's commitment to careful, structured investigation provided a solid foundation for future generations of researchers and enthusiasts. The slow, methodical approach that NICAP embraced created a lasting framework for how to explore the unknown with respect, curiosity, and patience. Today, as modern investigations into UFOs and unexplained phenomena continue, it is clear that the groundwork laid by NICAP, its meticulous record-keeping, careful analysis of eyewitness testimony, and dedication to transparency, still echoes through the methods used by today's researchers. In a world that is increasingly dominated by fast-paced information, social media, and sensational headlines, NICAP's legacy stands as a testament to the value of slow, deliberate inquiry. In the years following its peak, many of NICAP's findings were absorbed by new organizations, like the Center for UFO Studies, CUFOS, or the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON. But its approach remained fundamentally unique. NICAP never sought to sensationalize or embellish the stories it collected. Rather, it focused on the quiet persistence of these phenomena and allowed them to speak for themselves. The files now serve as a historical record, not only of the sightings that shaped the UFO movement, but of the steady progression of public understanding. In a world where it is often tempting to seek immediate answers or conclusions, NICAP's method of patiently collecting data, considering multiple angles, and leaving room for mystery remains an important model for contemporary investigations. Modern researchers, particularly those working within government or scientific frameworks, now have access to a wealth of tools and technologies that NICAP could not have imagined. Satellite imagery, advanced radar systems, and sophisticated computer algorithms allow for more precise tracking of objects, making it easier to gather hard data on aerial phenomena. Yet even with these advancements, the need for careful interpretation remains as strong as ever. The complexity of these phenomena, whether they are man-made, natural, or something entirely different, means that the mysteries of the sky continue to elude definitive answers. In many ways, the approach taken by NICAP, which focused on documentation and quiet inquiry rather than rushing to conclusions, is just as relevant today as it was half a century ago. It is a reminder that the pursuit of understanding requires patience, and that not all answers must be immediate to be meaningful. The way in which NICAP's files frame the unknown is crucial to their lasting influence. They don't seek to push a particular narrative, but rather to allow the facts to speak for themselves. This is perhaps most evident in the way that the organization handled cases of multiple witnesses. In situations where more than one person had observed an unusual phenomenon, NICAP's investigators would cross-check reports for consistency, always looking for the subtle details that linked accounts. These files, while incomplete in some cases, form a quiet yet powerful testament to the fact that the unknown can often be understood through careful and respectful inquiry. Even in the absence of a definitive explanation, NICAP's work still provides a sense of connection between all those who have witnessed strange phenomena. It is a quiet affirmation that the search for answers is a shared endeavor, undertaken by people from all walks of life, who, when looking up at the same sky, experience a brief, unspoken connection in the mystery they observe. Moreover, NICAP's influence continues to resonate in the world of contemporary popular culture. The themes and imagery that originated in these investigations, objects moving against the wind, silent crafts hovering over rural landscapes, lights that seem to defy the laws of physics, have found their way into the public consciousness, particularly in the science fiction genre. Films and TV shows continue to draw from the carefully documented cases that NICAP recorded, using them as the basis for stories that are both thrilling and deeply human. These stories capture the imagination while retaining an underlying respect for the mystery that NICAP worked to preserve. They demonstrate how the careful documentation of the unknown can enrich the storytelling experience, providing a deeper sense of wonder and awe that feels grounded in reality, even as it delves into the fantastical. For those who seek a deeper understanding of UFO phenomena, the rediscovery of NICAP's files offers a unique perspective. It is an invitation to engage with the unknown not from a position of fear or sensationalism, but with a sense of quiet curiosity and respect for the complexity of the universe. The documents themselves, with their slow pacing and careful attention to detail, encourage a form of engagement that mirrors the peaceful experience of stargazing. Just as the night sky holds infinite mysteries, so too does NICAP's archive. Each file, each report, is like a star in the vast cosmos of unexplained sightings, offering a point of reference for those willing to look closely and contemplate. In the end, the purpose of revisiting these files is not to uncover immediate answers, but to appreciate the quiet depth of the mystery. NICAP's approach to UFO investigations has an enduring relevance because it does not rush to conclusions or sensationalize its findings. It simply offers a space for reflection, where the complexities of the unknown can be explored without the need for immediate resolution. In a world that often demands quick answers and definitive conclusions, NICAP's legacy is a reminder that some mysteries are better understood through slow, deliberate investigation, where each new piece of information gently adds to the larger picture, but without the expectation of a neat and tidy answer. The unknown remains, and in that mystery, there is room for both intrigue and tranquility. As we reach the end of this journey through NICAP's lost files and the mysterious phenomena they documented, it becomes clear that the significance of these records is not just in the mysteries they describe, but in the way they invite us to approach the unknown. The process of investigation itself, calm, methodical, and reflective, is as important as the answers we seek. NICAP's work, with its quiet patience and disciplined approach to documentation, offers a model for how we can engage with the mysteries of the world around us. Rather than rushing toward conclusions or embracing sensational explanations, NICAP encouraged us to take a step back, observe carefully, and let the data speak for itself. It is this spirit of inquiry that resonates through the decades, carrying with it the sense that some questions may never be fully answered, but they are still worth asking. NICAP's contribution was not just in the cases it documented, but in the broader cultural shift it helped foster. The organization's insistence on careful investigation and its focus on the credibility of witnesses and corroborating evidence laid the foundation for the serious study of UFO phenomena. Long before the rise of modern UFO research organizations and the recent wave of governmental declassification efforts, NICAP created a space where the public could engage with the unknown in a grounded, thoughtful way. The organization recognized that the unexplained should not be dismissed out of hand, nor should it be sensationalized for entertainment or fear. By treating each case with respect and attention, NICAP helped elevate the conversation from one of hysteria and wild speculation to one of thoughtful inquiry and quiet exploration. Today, as new reports of aerial phenomena continue to surface, we can look back on NICAP's archives with a sense of gratitude. Their work serves as a reminder that the pursuit of knowledge is an ongoing process, one that requires patience, humility, and an openness to the unexpected. NICAP did not seek to prove or disprove anything definitively. Instead, it sought to create a space where questions could be asked, evidence could be considered, and theories could be tested. It is this openness to the unknown that has made their work so enduring. At the same time, the cultural impact of NICAP's legacy cannot be understated. The organization's careful cataloging of UFO sightings helped move the conversation about aerial phenomena into a more respected and serious space. In an era when the media was often quick to sensationalize strange sightings and turn them into stories of alien invasions, NICAP maintained a quiet dignity. Their investigation style, rooted in skepticism and attention to detail, provided a counterbalance to the often fantastical stories that dominated the public's perception of UFOs. This level-headed approach helped reshape how the public viewed UFOs, not as purely the stuff of science fiction or fringe conspiracy theories, but as a legitimate subject for scientific inquiry and public discussion. The files themselves are a fascinating document not only of what was observed, but of how we, as a society, have evolved in our relationship with the unknown. The witnesses recorded in these files were not simply looking at strange lights in the sky. They were grappling with something larger, something that spoke to humanity's place in the universe. As much as these sightings captured the imagination of individuals, they also spoke to a deeper, collective yearning to understand what lies beyond our understanding. The questions raised by these phenomena are not just about the nature of the object themselves, but about our own capacity to understand the mysteries of the universe. In a way, NICAP's legacy is a reflection of that very mystery. The organization did not claim to have all the answers, nor did it claim that every UFO sighting was of extraterrestrial origin. It simply observed, recorded, and considered. It provided a space for people to share their experiences without fear of ridicule, offering a framework for understanding that was grounded in logic and evidence. This is the key reason why NICAP's work remains relevant today. Its approach to the unknown was not driven by sensationalism, but by the quiet conviction that the unknown is worth exploring, even if the answers remain elusive. Looking back, NICAP's influence is still felt in how we approach mysterious phenomena today. While much of the public conversation has shifted toward more dramatic narratives, the organization's legacy offers a counterpoint. It suggests that sometimes the most meaningful way to explore the unknown is not through grand, sweeping conclusions, but through patient, steady observation. The files speak to a larger truth, that even in the absence of definitive answers, there is value in the process of seeking. This is perhaps the greatest gift that NICAP has given us, a model for how to engage with the mysteries of the world with a sense of calm curiosity, grounded in the belief that even if we never fully understand, the search is worthwhile. As you reflect on the files, the stories, and the mysteries within them, consider the quiet rhythm that NICAP's work created. It was never about rushing toward the answers, but about finding meaning in the questions. In many ways, this approach mirrors the way we should engage with the mysteries in our own lives. Not everything requires an immediate resolution. Sometimes, the journey itself is as valuable as the destination. NICAP's legacy is one of thoughtful inquiry, patient investigation, and a respect for the unknown. In this quiet space, there is room for both wonder and tranquility as we continue to gaze upward, wondering what else the sky might hold. As the journey through NICAP's archives comes to a close, it is worth taking a moment to reflect on the broader meaning of these lost files and the calm, deliberate approach that shaped them. The cases, the witness testimonies, the radar logs, and the meticulous correspondence all point to a singular truth. Mystery does not require chaos to exist, nor does it demand that we fully understand it in order to find value in it. There is a quiet beauty in the unknown, an invitation to engage with the cosmos at a pace that allows observation, contemplation, and imagination to coexist. NICAP's work reminds us that the sky, vast and often imperceptible in its subtlety, can harbor phenomena that elude simple explanation, and that the process of documenting and reflecting upon these phenomena is in itself a meaningful pursuit. Looking across decades, NICAP's legacy is less about sensational encounters and more about the cultivation of a mindset, one of patience, curiosity, and thoughtful consideration. The organization's investigators approached each case with meticulous care, cross-referencing reports, analyzing environmental conditions, and weighing witness credibility. Even when definitive explanations were elusive, every observation was treated as worthy of documentation. This philosophy created a profound sense of respect for both the witnesses and the phenomena they observed. Farmers, pilots, radar operators, and civilians were all acknowledged as valuable contributors to a larger tapestry of understanding. In this way, NICAP's files not only recorded mysterious objects in the sky, but also captured human responses to the unexplained, preserving a subtle yet profound portrait of collective curiosity and wonder. The calm, measured pacing of the investigations is mirrored in the way the cases themselves unfold. Many sightings involve small, quiet details rather than dramatic displays. Lights that hovered silently, formations that shifted in geometric patterns, or objects that disappeared as suddenly as they appeared. There was rarely any sense of immediate threat. Rather, there was a gentle tension, a quiet fascination that invited observers to pay attention and reflect. NICAP's commitment to methodical recording reinforced this perspective. The organization never sensationalized, never rushed to judgment, and never demanded conclusions where none could be reliably drawn. In reading these files, one experiences a rhythm akin to watching the night sky, slow, deliberate, and full of small, subtle wonders that gradually accumulate into a sense of awe. Perhaps one of the most enduring aspects of NICAP's legacy lies in its treatment of uncertainty. Unlike many narratives that demand definitive answers, the files embrace ambiguity as an essential element of exploration. When witnesses reported lights that moved against expected physics or performed maneuvers beyond contemporary understanding, NICAP did not automatically assign them to extraterrestrial or paranormal categories. Instead, each possibility was weighed thoughtfully. Atmospheric phenomena, experimental aircraft, optical illusions, and more extraordinary hypotheses were all considered in turn. The organization's restraint allowed the mysteries to remain open-ended, creating a sense of space in which the mind could wander freely, imagining and contemplating without pressure. This approach encourages a calm engagement with uncertainty, a skill that has value far beyond the context of UFO sightings. The cultural impact of NICAP's work extends into contemporary explorations of the unexplained. Modern investigators, journalists, and enthusiasts often cite the organization as a model for rigorous, respectful documentation. Even in a world dominated by instantaneous reporting and viral sensationalism, NICAP's emphasis on patience, corroboration, and credibility remains a touchstone. The organization's archives offer both data and a philosophy that curiosity can coexist with calm, and that mysteries can be deeply engaging without requiring fear or hyperbole. For listeners seeking relaxation, reflection, or a gentle immersion into the unknown, this approach provides a perfect framework, blending intrigue with tranquility. The files also invite us to consider the broader human experience. Observing the sky, noting anomalies, and seeking understanding is not merely an intellectual exercise. It is a deeply human impulse, one that connects generations and cultures. NICAP's work demonstrates that even small, localized sightings can carry universal resonance. The experience of witnessing something inexplicable, the wonder, the questioning, the careful recording, is shared across time and space. In this sense, the files are as much about humanity as they are about the objects themselves. They remind us that mystery is a shared journey, one that encourages patience, reflection, and respect for the unknown. Ultimately, the Lost NICAP files provide more than a historical record. They offer a meditative journey into observation, curiosity, and reflection. Each entry, from pilot accounts to radar anomalies, serves as a gentle reminder that the sky is vast and full of subtleties, and that there is value in slowing down to notice them.